I was going to bring you not necessarily the video I was showing or the one I showed earlier. This is just to keep you going through the night in case you're at work and you're just by yourself. This is something worth watching. So enjoy.
What's up guys, it's Joey. Welcome back to my channel. So as you can see from the title, today we're going to be talking about one of my biggest adventures of my entire life, my time living in Africa. So I haven't really discussed it much on this channel because it did happen a couple years ago, but it was a huge chunk of time. It's actually the longest I've ever spent out of the States in a single area. But I spent a year living in West Africa in the country of Liberia, part of the Peace Corps, which is an organization from the United States that goes and offers resources and teachers or healthcare workers and things like that to go help out in other countries as volunteers. This video would be hours long if I talked about everything that went on there. So I kind of wanted to break it up and focus on different little parts. My whole job and like teaching in Africa and being in the classrooms and being a volunteer in a Peace Corps, and I'm gonna save till the next video. So if you're interested in that, definitely look out for that because that is gonna be a whole different perspective of like, I mean, what it is like to actually work there and be in the school systems and things like that. For this one right here, we're gonna be focusing on what it was like as an American living in West Africa for a full year. All right, so first to dive right in, I want to give you guys kind of a background on the country of Liberia. And the first thing probably a lot of you guys are wondering is where the heck is this country? Myself, when I was selected for the service there, I had no idea where it was. And then a lot of people confuse it with Libya and different types of countries all over the place. I'm actually going to show you on my map over here. So I have a map in my room of all the different countries I've been to. Liberia is this little one right here. So it is right next to Ivory Coast and Sierra Leone and Guinea. It is on the coast right here, just north of the equator, and the Sahara is all this right here. So it's one of those countries that's not quite down so far to get into like the jungle and rainforest part of Africa, but below the desert. Ooh, let me go turn that lamp back on. So a little bit of history about the country. It was actually formed from the freed slaves of the Americas. They were moved back into and set free in Liberia, and that's why it is called Liberia. It's for liberty and the freed slaves. Because of this, the national language is English. So when going there, people do speak a form of English. It is not the English that you or I would use or that they use in England or anything. I mean, everywhere has a little bit of a different dialect. Liberian English is almost to the point of being a separate language. I mean, there's so many different words, different sounds and everything, but it's based off of traditional standard English.
The one I get mad on, that so-called big Jew, she get me mad on business. That nonsense you're coming to me and come and tell me what? Eh?
When you king, that horse where you used to carry your dating into that my own horse.
Now I go to see my family, not my problem.
Americans say she told on you. Liberians say she finished running cheche pole on you.
And then I think the next big question people will have is like, kind of, what was it like? What was the landscape? Were there like massive animals and stuff? And so West Africa is not what people think of when they think of Africa. Most people would think of like wide open plains, grasslands, I mean lions, elephants, giraffes, zebras. None of those big animals really live up there in West Africa. For the most part, it is smaller animals. We did have quite a bit of monkeys, and then one of my favorites, the pangolin, which is one of the most endangered species out there. I had one little guy that loved my house, and my neighbor kids brought him over for me, and he chilled out for a while until I sent him back into the trees. Not the African animals you expect, because those are all down more in East and South Africa. And then also we were along the coast. So almost like the entire country is along this coast. And so like my house was right on the beach, and a lot of different volunteers lived and went to the beach pretty much every day. I mean, I know I could probably count on one hand the number of days I didn't go to the beach. And that was just when I like really wasn't feeling well or traveling or something like that. But the beach is definitely one of the most beautiful places. There's no real like touristy beach areas, so all of it's just like natural, mile long, endless as far as you can see, pristine beaches, which is awesome and amazing and one of my favorite parts about the country. But yeah, it's not really what you expect with the grassy plains because it's mainly like a tropical forest, not so much jungle as like big canopy and everything. It doesn't really have that. It's more just, we call it the bush because it's just kind of like a tropical forest with like, I don't know, not that many big animals or anything. I didn't expect the country to be so green because in Africa we think of desert and like the savannah, like the grassy plains. So Liberia is one of the poorer countries that the Peace Corps serves in, and they've had a rough couple of decades the past probably 30 or so years. They had a really big civil war that dates back into the 90s and early 2000s, so not that long ago. It kind of wiped out the country. People were fleeing the country. There was multiple coups over and over again with the government, but it has created this kind of infrastructure problem where there's no more running water or electricity and buildings are decrepit. So it has a little bit of an interesting look because of that. And then also, as some of you will remember, Ebola, Liberia was a hotspot for that in West Africa. So they came out of the Civil War and then went straight into Ebola. And we were one of the first groups back. So there was another group that was about halfway through their service, then we came in. So we were kind of that first group to see like picking it back up from the ground. So it's very sad now with COVID because the Peace Corps has pulled out again from the entire world, which is a huge deal. Leaving again and just everything that's going on now, they keep on kind of getting hit with stuff. It's definitely an interesting perspective living in that type of country because one of the most impoverished nations of Africa and one of the like hardest hit recently places to be in the world. So yeah, it was different for sure. So there was a lot of dark history there that has since reshaped the whole kind of country into being very, very kind. You will never see guns or anything like that anymore, and everybody is trying to help each other out. So now that you kind of have a little bit of a backstory on Liberia and what the country is like and kind of what we were walking into as becoming volunteers there, next I'm going to talk about how the government was structured. So since of the close ties with America, it was actually very, very similar to an American government in a sense. They had the president and the senators, and the Constitution was almost identical to the American one because it was basically modeled after that, like taken from the States and then applied to this country in Africa. And for better or worse, that's kind of how they ran things there. So they also used American money. They had the Liberian dollar and then the US dollar, which would constantly be exchanged between the two. About 120 Liberian dollars equals 1 US dollar. And the lowest denomination was 5 Liberian dollars, which is about 3 cents. And for example, like if I went to the market, I could buy my groceries for about 50 Liberian dollars a day, which is like 30 cents. So it is a very cheap country to live. Very, very cheap. Though we're talking about food and stuff, I kind of want to go into my actual experience because this has kind of been a general background of it. I mean, you could dive in so much to it and there's so much different resources you could pull from, but that was about as brief as I could make it. Now that I brought up the market, I guess the natural thing to go into now is food because that's what everybody is always curious. What did I eat? What was available? What did the people eat there? All that kind of stuff. So next we're going to go into food. So the first thing is I kind of want to describe a typical Liberian dish. So the way food works in Liberia is it's almost always a pot of rice and a pot of soup. That will be your meal every single day of the week. And normally it's gonna be a big pot of rice and a little bit of soup. So predominantly, I would say about 70% of everybody's food is rice. That's the primary food group for everybody. And then the soup is not what we would call soup. It's not like a liquid soup. It's more like I would say a sauce. It's pretty much the consistency of sauce. And they had a couple different ones that they would rotate through. Basically your greens, which were cassava leaf, water greens, potato greens, okra, and you slash those up and then it's fried in oil. It's not the most healthy, even though you're thinking greens. It's basically just sopped up oil with rice. So there's not much nutrients there. The other types of soup, my personal 2 favorites were pumpkin soup, which is pretty similar to butternut squash. So you are gonna boil that until it kind of gets into a mushy consistency and then add your spices and seasonings. And that one was always pretty good. I like that one a lot. And then my favorite though is this thing called palm butter. So this is not something I've ever heard of. I've never seen it anywhere else in the world. I think it's either a Liberian or maybe West African specialty in itself. Essentially what you do is you take the like little seeds of a palm nut. I'll put something here to show you what I'm talking about, but they're like red and black and yellow, and you boil them. Also, before we get to any of that, there's no electricity, so you don't have a stove or anything. So what people do is we have a coal pot, and essentially you put your coals on top, you light a fire, and that takes, 20-30 minutes just to get going enough to cook anything. So that's a process already. And then once you have that, you've got your coal pot cooking, you're gonna boil these nuts. You take those nuts and then you put them into what is that thing called? Like a giant mortar and pestle. So then you start hitting them with this massive stick and breaking the husk off the nut. So imagine like getting a coconut, the husk off a coconut, but they're much smaller. After that, once you have those husks, then you're gonna put it back in the water and you're gonna boil it again, and then you're gonna take it out again and hit them again until you've got all the husks off and you can start removing the black little like pits, and you get those gone. But then they call it scranging. It's basically like squish as you would like if you're wringing out laundry, essentially, and you squeeze the husks until the yellow liquid comes out, which that will later turn into like more of a consistent thing, but at first it just kind of looks like yellow water. So you're gonna squish that all, and then you put it back in the thing, and you hit it all again, and then you squish it again, and then you finally get kind of a pot full of yellow liquid. And it seems like this is just water, that your whole meal is just gonna be water. But you then put that back on the fire and put it on for about 2 hours or so, and then eventually all that liquid will come off and you'll get mush. Looked it up, it's mainly just fat because that's kind of what nuts are, but it's super, super good. So you cook it with a bunch of pepper. That's how Liberians cook. It's very, very spicy. Now coming back to the States, I can do the hot wing challenge anywhere we go. Everywhere I go, like with my friends or something, I'll eat something and I'll be like, oh yeah, there's no spice at all. And they will be like crying. There's nowhere in the world that has spice that compares to Africa, I don't believe. I mean, I've eaten some really spicy, authentic Indian. I've lived in South America and eaten their spice, and it just doesn't compare. It literally burned off my taste buds. I mean, it is insane. When you first start, you just can't even eat or feel anything. But then over time, you get used to it, and then finally, like, your neighbors will start adding more spice, or they'll put more in your meal, and you just kind of work up your tolerance to the point that you can actually eat like them. Because when you first get there, there's no way you can. I mean, you will be sick because of how spicy it is. I never really cooked with meat, and a lot of volunteers didn't, just because it's not the most sanitary. The meat that you buy, it's gonna be just kind of from a table at the market, and there's flies going on and stuff, and I know it's probably okay. I can never cook it myself. I ate anything that was given to me, anytime anybody would bring to me. It was delicious, and I loved it, but I don't trust my own cooking enough to know that that's gonna be okay for me to eat. When we first got there, me and my friend made the pact of like, we're never gonna turn anything down. Whatever they give us, we're gonna eat. And we ate some weird stuff. A lot of times you just had to like, just not think about it. I mean, they would tell me it was a chicken and the bone would be like that big. And I'm just like, that's not chicken. They basically classified everything as either fish, chicken, or meat. And you never really knew what that was gonna be if they said meat. You know, it could be anything. I mean, I don't wanna get too gruesome, but yeah, like definitely dogs and cats, and I ate python and I think a pangolin and deer, and it could be literally anything. But that's kind of the way of life out there. I mean, that's reality for a lot of the world, because it's not like here. There are no grocery stores, there's no electricity, so there's no refrigerators, so that means like goodbye to dairy as a whole food group. I mean, there's no milk, there's no cheese, no yogurt, anything like that. Anything that needs to be refrigerated, just count that out. Everything you're gonna eat that day, you buy in the market that day. So if I was gonna cook something different than a Liberian dish though, I did a lot of, you could get these boxes of falafel actually in the market, in the like actual market in the capital, which was 8 hours away from my house. So whenever I would go there, I would like stock up and buy like the whole shelf and then bring that back to my site. Because those are really, really good and a good source of protein since we weren't eating much meat. We could do things like empanadas or tacos, pastas and stuff like that. A lot of beans and chili. Chili was a big one. Just whatever you can kind of cook that's gonna be able to cook on a fire. I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. You're not gonna be doing any fancy gourmet meals, and you can't save anything, so it's also gotta kind of be a quick meal that is gonna get eaten. You can't cook too much. I did absolutely love cooking with my neighbors though, because in Liberia, the men don't really ever cook. So they thought it was so funny that I cooked. Everybody would walk by and they'd just be, oh, Joseph's cooking. And they would just kind of like watch me while I cooked. Like, and they would, at first, they would totally try and correct everything, because they'd be like, no, you have to do this, you have to do this. Oh, you're burning it. Oh, and then trying to get me to like, oh, you should put some fish heads or put some of this meat. And I'd just be like, no, I'm okay, I promise, it's good. But after a while, they just kind of like, found it comical, the meals I would make, because it's not their way of doing things. In the same way as if they came here and they cooked a meal, we would think it's strange. So they definitely like thought it was hilarious, and they thought I was probably the worst cook ever. But it was really cool just because, I don't know, it challenges their gender roles and like a little bit of the concepts there, which was always nice. The other big thing with food was like what's actually available. There's no like refrigeration or mass distribution or anything. It's just kind of whatever is grown in your village, and that is constantly changing. When I first got there, it was pineapple and avocado every day. That would be your snack. There would be so many pineapples, so many avocados, and I love that because those are two of my favorite fruits. That was in about June, and then in August, all of a sudden there's no pineapple, no avocado, and there's just cucumbers everywhere. And you're gonna eat cucumbers every single day for the next 3 months. And then after that, it went to oranges every day. That's it. And so you kind of just like eat something until you're sick of it, and then all of a sudden there's no more left and you have to eat something else, and you kind of miss whatever it was before that. After oranges, it went to bananas, and then it went to mangoes, and then it went back to pineapple and avocado. So there was definitely months that were better. I mean, cucumber season is just like, sucks because those don't have any substance, and I don't know, it's not a fruit, but that's gonna be the only vegetable you get. There's no veggies really at all there. I kind of lost dairy, I lost meat, I lost veggies. I was kind of just eating grains and fruit. That's about it. I added 25 pounds while I was in Africa, which is like weird. You wouldn't think that's gonna happen, but then when you kind of hear the diet of like every day you're eating rice and something soaked and fried in oil. But yeah, it's definitely contrary to what you would think because of the diet. I thought it was really fun learning to cook there and learning to cook on the open flame, and all of my neighbors were super helpful, and they're just trying to like work with you and do things and have a good time. And my back porch connected pretty much to my neighbor's front porch, so we would all cook together, and meals are big family time for Liberians, and so everybody would be there gathered around, and like, I don't know, you're just sitting and talking, and meals were one of my favorite points for sure. All right guys, so I'm editing this video and it is getting a little bit long, so I think I'm gonna end it here, but there's still a lot more to come in the next one, talking about kind of traveling around the country, what my house was like living there, the clothing, and also I have a special guest coming to join me, talking about her time visiting me in Africa. So it's still a lot more and I'm very excited for it, but for this one, leave a like, comment down below, maybe something I talked about you didn't expect. Look out for that next one, make sure to subscribe, and goodbye. So I lived right here in Riversess, down here. So it took me about 8 hours to get to there. This is more the formal traditional African style, Liberian style. So with the embroidered design, it's a bit bigger of a shirt. So I want her to talk a little bit about her experiences, and so I will go get her now and be back in a second. What's up guys, it's Joey, welcome back. So today is gonna be part 2 of my life living in Africa in the country of Liberia. So in this video, we're gonna be diving into what my house was like, how I got water, the different tribes, all the things like that. But first, if you haven't seen last week's video, that was more on like a background of the country. So the history of Liberia, what the food situation was like, the language, all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't seen that one yet, I'm gonna put a link right here. I want you guys to pause this video, watch that one first, because I think it'll give you a better understanding of like, I don't know, the country I was living in before we dive into more of my experience there. So do that first. Once we're all caught up, then we're gonna jump right back in with what the living situation was like in my house. So yeah, let's do it. There was this stereotypical Peace Corps house, which was this bright green house, which I don't know why they painted that color, but mine was one of those. It was this bright green house, kind of almost like a normal house from the outside, but then you get inside, straight concrete floor that's like all uneven and nothing has ever really been measured. So the walls kind of meet at weird angles, roofs are slanted, and the windows don't really fit, and the doors don't really fit, and everything's pretty weird, and it's made out of mud and stick and rocks. I didn't get a hotel or like a 5-star or anything. We were living just in what everybody in that village would live in, which I thought was very cool. And when I moved there, my house was completely empty. I didn't have chairs, I didn't have a bed, I had nothing. So I bought a mattress that night, and then just kind of like slowly over time, which was kind of fun, got to build up. I mean, I got shelves in the kitchen and the bathroom, and then I got something for a closet, and I got a bookshelf to put my things, which was also helping out the community because they had 2 different wood carvers. So we would like have different things made, and it was really cool to kind of like have a place that was my own, that I got to build from scratch. I mean, there was not a single thing in that house, which was interesting in itself. And I was really proud of how it came out. I mean, one of the first things I did was put this little rubber mat on the ground because the concrete, I don't know, it's just weird walking into your house just on a concrete. So that was a good memory too. It's just making like, I don't know, a place for my own. It's the longest I've lived anywhere other than my parents' house. So it's really cool to like have that. For sure. I liked it a lot. The other big one in the house is water. So what we did for water, because there is no running water there. You can't turn on any faucet, you can't flush a toilet, there's no shower. So all of that comes from either a well or a pump. You kind of go to whatever's nearest you. So I had a well not too far from my house, and so I'd throw a bucket down, pull it up, pour it in another bucket, and I would take about 2 buckets that big, And that's the water I'm gonna use doing my dishes, for cooking, for drinking, for flushing the toilet. You dump a bucket, for showering. All that comes from those 2 buckets. And that would only be during the rainy season. So the rainy season lasted from about March until November was rainy season. So it is a lot of the year. During that time, the wells are full, everything's good, but it's raining every single day. So not much gets done. So school gets canceled a lot, work gets canceled a lot, everything gets canceled a lot because it's just raining. So then you have the dry season, which is about November through February. And during that, all of a sudden, like all the plants dry up. So there's no food and then there's no water. So like my well outside my house dried up. I had nothing. So then there was a pump down the road that I started going to. Those are the ones where you like do this and water comes out the front. And then that dried up in a little bit. And then there was another one further away and then that dried up. And so it got pretty difficult with water. I had to start you really had to start rationing it. And when I got really low, I was pretty much at the end of cause I had a barrel in my house that I could have for reserve. Then my neighbors were just amazing. And she one day spent almost the whole day walking. I don't even know where she went. I think it was like a private pump somewhere, and filled up my water barrel. And so that's what I mean. The Liberian people are just they're so kind and considerate, and they really look out for you, because we were part of their community. We're their teacher, we're their son and daughter's teachers, or we're their neighbor. I mean, I cooked with them every day. So they really welcome you in, and you're not in some cultures you very much feel like the foreigner. And in Liberia you do, because obviously you look different and you talk different, but they welcome you in as much as they can. One of the things is you get a name everywhere you go. So there's 16 tribes in Liberia scattered across all different parts, and so there's 16 different languages. So the main language is Liberian English, but then they have the tribal languages, which in my area was Bassa. But everywhere you go, they first person you meet is going to give you a name in that language, and that's kind of your sign that you are accepted into that community. Just little things like that were really, really cool. I had 9 different names or something going around there. They'd ask you what your Pele name is, what your Grebo name is, what your crew name is. And so you'd have to just I don't know, remember all of them. I had to remember a lot of names. So the next thing I want to talk about is one of my favorite things that was there is the type of clothing. So they wear this thing called lapa, which is basically you get a sheet of fabric, and then they have tailors there that will tailor it to anything you want to make. I mean, I had different blazers and shirts and pants and shorts and backpacks and wallets and ties. You could make absolutely anything you wanted. And all of it is out of these cool prints. I mean, you could get pockets and anything you wanted. And it is seen as formal wear there. So when I was teaching, I had to wear lapa every single day to teach. And I loved it because you can match anything you want. You could wear a full suit of the same print. It didn't matter. It was so much fun. It's definitely something, a expression of yourself that we don't have here in the States. So I actually have a lot of my old lapa back here that I really, really like. So these ones are some of the more casual shirts. I mean, these are button downs that I had made. Some different prints right here. Me and my best friend, actually, I got this one for him for his birthday. So we have a matching one. I liked that one with the zebras on it. And then I got these really cool shorts made. These were actually also the same print I had as my curtains in my house. These are some of my really cool pants that I liked a lot. I wore these blue ones all the time. And then this purple one actually has a matching shirt somewhere. And same with those pants for that shirt over there. This is more the formal traditional African style, Liberian style. So with the embroidered design, it's a bit bigger of a shirt. They wear them kind of longer, so it's down. And then I have that one. That was actually the first shirt I ever had made. I got it when I was first arriving in Liberia. I like it a lot. This one is one of my favorites. So this is a blazer and pant combo. So this was my suit. It looks like a dinosaur. I mean, they look like dinosaur eggs. It's bright green. It was my Barney suit. I loved this thing. I taught in it a lot. That was one of my favorites. I had a vest made that was from our swear-in. So a bunch of me and my closer friends there all got matching ones. And we have a little hat that's somewhere in my room. I'm not sure where. And then this was probably one of my most formal shirts. I mean, it had a really nice embroidered design. So cool. I love this stuff. Definitely something we don't have here in the States or a lot of places. It's just that everything is kind of, you pick it out, you design it, you bring it to a tailor and they make it. It's not you just go shopping on a rack. I mean, you get to really fully, I don't know, take advantage of your clothes. It's cool. And then the price of it, I mean, the fabric itself is probably about 300 LD, which is like $2.50, so not expensive at all. And then to get it tailored is like probably $3 to $5. So all in all, you're paying like $7 for a custom designed shirt that looks way cooler than anything else you're ever gonna buy. So I like the clothes, they're doing it right. For sure. The last big part I want to talk about is traveling kind of between the country, like how we got from one volunteer to another, how it was, kind of the country as a whole. So actually, I have this map also. I have a lot of things to show you guys up on my wall. These are the 16 counties in Liberia. So the capital is right here, and that's where about half the population lives. And there's only this one road that goes up like this to about here. And that is the only paved road, and then it goes over here also in the entire country. And then the rest of all of this and up here and everything is just dirt roads. And it is rough. So I lived right here in River Cess, down here. So it took me about 8 hours to get to there, which is probably about 200 miles. It is not far. It is not far at all. It should, if this was in the States, it should only take maybe 2 hours at most. To get from one place to another, because the whole country is about the size of Virginia, I want to say. I think that's about accurate. I will look it up. I'll put a fact check here if that's correct. Traveling amongst the country was really, really hard, especially during the rainy season, because the roads just kind of turned to mush. Think of like the worst road you can imagine, dirt road, and then imagine someone coming in with like a crane and digging potholes in it, and then sticking semis in the potholes, and then filling them with water, and then putting a car jam on either side. And that's what you're talking about with these roads. I mean, the holes would be the size of trucks, and that's not an exaggeration at all. I mean, there was multiple times we'd have flip trucks or sunken trucks or just stuff so big you couldn't cross. So for example, to get out to where I lived, where I just showed you in River Cess, for about 8 months of the year during the rainy season, no cars could pass. There was no car that could make it from the capital to where I lived. So only bikes could go. Really, even at that point, it's gonna take a while, because the bikes at some points you'd get off the bike, you'd walk through the mud, and they'd push the bike or carry the bike overhead, and then you'd get back on for another 10 minutes, then you'd get off and push it, and it was always a process. And then you get stuck in the rain and have to stop. So traveling was also one of the more difficult things, just because there's so little roads. I mean, everything is just kind of awful.
So if you could sum up the experience of traveling by road in one word, what word would you choose?
Back pain. Time consuming.
It's very risky.
Unpredictable.
Tiring.
It's horrible.
Terrible.
Very, very different.
But if it was the dry season, sometimes cars could pass. But they have a very different system for cars. How they work there is, so everybody is going to get in a taxi. Almost nobody, I don't know anybody actually that had a private car. So there's taxi drivers that would kind of shuttle people from one place to another. And that's just a normal 5-seater car. But in Liberia, that is minimum, and I mean minimum, 7-seater. So you would have the driver, and then he would rent out 2 seats in the front and another 4 or 5 in the back. You would also be including like chickens and goats and all things like that. So the car would be absolutely packed. And if you wanted your own seat, you had to buy either 2 or 3 person's wage of that taxi drive. So it was always very hard. And that also means like the driver's not going to go until that car is filled up. So if you want to go from like my city to the capital, you want to leave in the morning, he's got to have 6 other people that want to go also, or else he's not going to go because it's not worth it for him. So traveling was always very difficult, no matter if you used a bike or a car. I mean, most of the time car was inaccessible, but bike is always, I thought, easier, but a lot of times more dangerous because they do like to go fast and the roads are so bad. So I don't know, travel is one of the definitely more difficult points. But it was also one of the most fun because I mean, you do get to go explore this amazing country, and we'd have volunteers all over the place. So you would get stuck in a random city or town and you would just kind of like text that volunteer and be like, hey, sorry, I'm stuck here, can I crash? And everybody was always like, we're one big family. So that was really, really cool. It's such a like small country in that sense that it was very interesting traveling around for sure. Speaking of traveling, I had one very special guest come and join me while I was in Liberia. She stayed with me for about a month, and I don't know, it's just so great to share this with somebody. So I want her to talk a little bit about her experiences, and so I will go get her now and be back in a second. All right, so she is here. Welcome to the channel, my mom, Mama Briggs, right here. Say hello to the people. So I wanted to bring her on the channel since she came to visit me in Liberia, and I just wanted her to share a little bit of her experience as well. So I have a couple questions for you. First, just first impression when you first got to Liberia. Like, what was it like for you?
Yeah,
It was your first time ever coming to visit.
Right. Well, first of all, you had very long hair, which was unusual. In your Peace Corps shirt. It was very late at night when he picked me up. My flight came in like 11 o'clock at night, something like that. And
they have one flight per day, and it's always really, really late.
Yeah, everybody's clamoring for your attention. Everybody's clamoring to try and get to take your bags for you, and Joey was able to get them all to step away barely.
Yeah.
And he had a friend with a big like Suburban waiting to pick me up and take me. Little did I know that was very unusual. That was never going to happen again.
So she did get the full car experience like I was talking about later, but at first she got very lucky, got her own seat to herself. And
there were only 4 of us in the car, and it was a big Suburban. So I thought, this is fine. Little did I know that was going to change rapidly.
Yeah. All right. And then did you have any fears before you came?
That's a tough one. Coming to a country you know nothing about, I did a little bit, but because you were there, I didn't. If I had done it on my own, I would have been more, especially coming in at 11 o'clock at night, not knowing where I was or where I was going, but because you were there, it was fine.
Sweet. And then maybe what you think was like the biggest challenge being there, or biggest difference, I guess.
Over and over, you kept telling me they don't understand you. I'm speaking English, they're speaking English, but neither one of us are speaking English to each other. And so you kept saying they don't know what you're saying. And I kept trying to communicate, but that wasn't happening. So
so like I was talking about earlier, it's the same language, but it takes months of, we had to go through 2 months of language courses,
and you would talk to your other Peace Corps friends in that language, and I wouldn't even understand you. So even though it was English, and the terms were so different. Just things meant different things.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
So one of the things I saw that I wasn't expecting was the beaches were so beautiful.
Yeah, the beaches were amazing.
I thought Africa was like the African plain, or that's all I knew was like Lion King. I had no idea. It was so beautiful.
How was it living with me in Liberia? Like, how was that?
So it was interesting because you got up and left so early every morning. You would get up and run and then go teach in the morning. So I was kind of there by myself, and I usually would pick a project or something around the house until you got
my
back.
house got way better when she came.
I made shelves and did all kinds of stuff, and plus I brought a bunch of stuff with me. And I brought you those solar lights that we hung, and we would play cards every night or play some game every night, and then pretty much go to bed when it was, too dark to see anymore. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. We got in a good routine, I think.
How did you find the Liberian people?
Well, so welcoming, and that's what made it hard because I couldn't communicate with them. So everybody, as we would walk down the street, would say hello to you and say hello, Mama Briggs, like they knew me, and I'd never met any of them. Like you kept saying, you've got to wave or something, because I was like, well, what are they doing? Why are they saying hello to me? I don't know who they are. But you had told a lot of people that I was coming, and so they were trying to welcome me. But I couldn't understand them, and they couldn't understand me. So that was interesting.
Well, those were all the questions I had for you.
Okay.
So
thanks.
if you
Bye. Peace out.
Can you tell them to leave a like and comment and subscribe?
Yeah, please do. So leave a like, comment, push the bell, so that the subscribe bell, so you get notification every time he's on. Doing one of these.
Leave a comment, welcome her to the channel, and maybe you'll see more of her in the future. All right, thank you guys.
Bye bye.
I sit down my first day, they bring out a nice bowl of rice. They know how to cook rice really well. And then they bring out this green gobble something. I didn't know what it was. My trainer's like, oh, this is called potato greens. I'm like, well, it looks gross. And he's like, this is what you do. He got a bowl of potato greens because it comes in 2 separate dishes. He got a scoop of potato greens, put it on top of the rice, mixed it in, and then ate it like that. And I'm like, oh, well, no. But he's like, just try it. I'm like, oh, I'm down for it. I'll try it. Mixed it in, stirred it up, tried it. I didn't like it at all at first. And then I felt blessed because they always brought out the rice in a separate bowl that they brought out the stew. And that's what the food is. It's almost breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you'll have rice. That's what it will be. You'll have rice. Because of that first experience, I was a little bit hesitant to continue on with it. So anytime they brought out the rice, my trainer would want to pour the stew on top. I'm like, no, please don't, please don't. And then he's like, fine. So he cuts the bowl of rice in half, and he says, this half is yours, this half is his. I would eat plain white rice, and he would put the stew on top of his and eat his. And then after I got done training, I went out with a couple other elders, and they brought out a bowl of the same potato greens again. And I'm like, man, I just need to get used to this. And this was after eating just plain rice for 3 months almost. And then I took a bite of the potato greens, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And it was, I don't know what made the change, but it was just like an immediate change that I went from just despising it to absolutely loving it. And the thing that they love more than anything else is pepper. They love pepper so much. They say pepe. And you go to the market, you can say $5 pepe, which is maybe just like the palm of my hand. Or you can have like $10 pepe, which is just a little bit more, and you can get more and more pepe by or not 10, because their currency is Liberian dollars. They use U.S. currency, and they use their own currency, which is Liberian dollars. When I left, it was 90 to 1. So one U.S. dollar was worth 90 Liberian dollars. And then they only have it up, the lowest currency is 5 LD, 5 Liberian dollars. So you go to the market and you buy your food. The pepper just makes you sick. It makes you so sick. It makes you have stomach issues like crazy. So there's nothing you can do to get around that. The stomach issues will be there for the first little while. But then you get used to the pepper, and then by the end of your mission, if something doesn't have pepper in it, then you feel like something's missing. So they love pepper. There's even a stew called pepe soup, which they cooked it a little different than normal. What they did is they just ground the pepper and then put it in a little bit of oil, and then fried it, and then just put it on top of a stew. And me and his name is Elder Polson, we were crying because of how much pepper it was. The woman had I think it was like this much pepper in there, and then she ground it all up, threw it in the fryer, and then put it on top of this rice. And then me and Other Polson were crying. We're like, but we're gonna finish it. We're gonna do this. So we finished it, and we were both by the end, our eyes were just bloodshot, completely bloodshot by how hot the food was. And since I've been home, I've just been dying for pepper, though. There's nothing here that I can find that's as hot as the pepper there. Just because I love pepper now. I didn't like it before, but I love it now. But the food there, it's I think it's amazing now. But it's a lot of pepper. Rice is what you'll be having. At first, you're going to be probably a little sick of it at first. But then you'll get to that point where you're really sick of it. And then you'll get to the point where you're like, man, I need rice 100%. So, and then they have their other things, which they have like fufu. That one you don't get quite as much. They have GB, which is cassava that they just pound up in a little pounder. And then they fry the cassava first, or the yam. And then they pound it up, and then it comes in like a ball. The best way to describe it's like a bread dough almost. Then you eat it with your fingers. You dip it in a stew, and then you eat it with your fingers, and you swallow it. You don't chew it; you just swallow it. They have pop. They have soda there, but you just say I want to get a soda, or not soda. You say I want to get soft drink, or if you say soft drink, they say what? I say sachi. And then I liked Fanta. I had Fanta like every day almost. But yeah, I'm not recalling any cake or cookies. I remember that during one ward activity, when they say something here, or a branch activity, when they say to a ward activity here, when they say we're going to bring out some refreshments, what does it normally mean? What does it normally mean when they say we're going to bring out some refreshments? You're thinking like cookies or ice cream or something like that. Well, me and this other Elder Polson again, we were sitting there, our first branch activity, like, we're going to bring out some refreshments. We're like, yes, this is the best thing in the world. We're excited. And then they bring out just this giant bowl of I think it was cassava leaves. They bring out this just giant bowl of cassava leaves and rice, and we're like, well, same as normal. Let's dig in. So that's their refreshments is just more rice. Right now, the biggest health thing is the Ebola crisis. But social issues. Right now, like a lot of times, they believe the government is a lot of West African countries. They believe that the government is very corrupt, because people that have government jobs, they're living wealthy, they have all of this, and then someone who has a job where they have their market, they're living in poverty. But to be honest, the majority of the country is in poverty. But again, one thing that I love so much about Liberia is that even though they are living in poverty and they kind of they know it, but they don't necessarily always act like it. Because I know there's a quote that I always heard. It's like we lived with what we have because we don't know what we. I'm sorry, I don't mean to mess up that quote. It's we live with what we have because we don't know what we don't have. If I'm sorry, I'm probably murdering that quote, and I feel really bad about it. It holds true to what they say, is because they have all of these things, and then these little things that they get, they're very appreciative for them. The little things that they have, they're appreciative that they got it, and they really appreciate all the small things that they get. So a lot of the country, it is in poverty, and it is very, 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 very poor, but yet they have their bag of rice and they're happy. They have they can go to a video club, which is just it's like a projector. They just have like a little projector that maybe they play a football game or soccer game on, and they absolutely love it. They love entertainment. They love being entertained. I think that's why they kind of liked me a lot, because I was very outgoing and fun when it came to them. I like to laugh. I like to have fun. So they like people who are outgoing. They like people who are gonna be outgoing, to make them laugh, to make them just kind of have fun. Don't be shy. The UN is in the country because recently they got off of a civil war. So the United Nations, they're there. So they're kind of keeping stuff under wraps a little bit more. Like guns, they're not allowed to have guns in the country. The only people that you'll see with a gun are people that are guarding Island's palace, the President Island, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, and those are going to be the only people you see with guns. UN officers and everything like that. But the police, they're not allowed to have guns, anything like that. So that comes with a little bit of tension. So a lot of times, sometimes at night, like I had one area where at night we were just sleeping and then we woke up to gunshots, and people were getting robbed around us. But we had a big fence above us, so we were safe there. And crime, it's definitely an issue there. Crime is definitely an issue, because it's just some people have the notion that if what I don't have, I'm going to steal it to get what I want. Not everyone, obviously, because I feel safe. I feel completely safe walking there and walking in the daytime, but that's why we're supposed to be indoors at night, because it's not as safe. Even we had one apartment that was the wall was, I want to say it's like about 6.5 feet or 7 feet tall, and then on top of the wall we had 2 layers of razor wire. And in this apartment that we were in, we had we always kept our water jugs out. We always kept our water containers outside, so when it would rain, the rain would fill up those containers, because there was all the apartments that I was in, except maybe like 1 or 2, they didn't have electricity. They didn't have running water. You have to go to the well and draw your water. You have to get water by a water truck coming in and filling up a poly tank. So we had those water jugs that we always drew water and put our water inside of. But one night, I don't know how, they ended up getting over this wall and underneath the razor wire, and they stole a couple of the buckets. They stole my rain boots. They stole my sandals. And they just stole kind of a lot of other things just around the outside. The houses were locked, so we were safe inside. But then we're like, oh, well, okay. well, as long as that's over, we're fine now. Then the next night they come back again. And then we're like, really? They just stole a couple of like more jugs and everything like that. And then the next night we were prepared, but nothing happened. The next night we're like, okay, we're fine. And then they came again. And then they came, and then when I left, they added 2 more layers of brick on there and then new razor wire on top of that. So since then they haven't gotten broken into again, so it works now. But yeah, I got my rain boots stolen like 4 times. Yeah. They weren't always happy about that, calling them. They're like, what happened to your rain boots? Got stolen again. Why? Left them outside. Didn't we tell you not to do that? Yes. So it's just you need to be smart. Like I don't want anyone to go there being scared. There's no reason to be, because everyone that I talk to, I love them to death. Sometimes it can be different because it's a completely different culture. That's going to be something you need to adjust to, is the culture and the different kind of the way that they look at things, the attitude that they kind of have towards things. Where something that isn't something big here, like if I say, hey, you're crazy, something here, it's not a big thing like that. But sometimes it depends on the person. If I say, oh man, you're crazy, they're like, oh, you just said that to me, and they're kind of insulted by it. And so some things that don't seem to be big things here, sometimes they take it more serious there. Don't be sarcastic like I am. They don't get sarcasm. But it's just the culture. It's different because they look at things differently. There's no way to kind of pinpoint it, but they're sometimes more aggressive when it comes to kind of social things. When you just go talk to someone, their kind of thing is, I'm going to go yell at the person, not because I'm super mad, but that's just kind of how I'm going to get it across, is I'm going to yell. I'm not going to talk, I'm going to yell. And that's just what it's like. That's just that's their way of being social, is they're really loud. So when you first get there, you're not going to be able to understand a word they're saying. It's just how it's going to be. The greatest way to learn it, though, is just going to be the listening and trying, and not trying too hard. How almost, I think every single, I haven't maybe like one missionary that I've ever met that just picked it up super quickly. But most missionaries, what they're going to do is they're going to get there. They're not going to understand a word, and then they're going to try to speak it. They're going to have this super funny accent that the other missionaries will make fun of you for it, because that's just how it goes. Not to make you worried. It's just how it goes. You get a funny accent because you're trying really, really hard to speak this colloqua. And what happens is the words that they understand and learn the words that they don't understand. Like, I'm trying to think of them now. My colloqua, it was good on the spot, but tell me to have a conversation with someone just outside of it, I was never very good at it. They don't say a lot. They'll say plenty. They don't say a little bit. They'll say small. A lot of times they'll start something, if they're talking about themselves, they'll say me. They'll say me, like, oh, me, I want to go here. And they just kind of cut words short, is the best way to describe it. It's just going to come by listening is the biggest thing. Oh, missionary work and listening. You're going to learn a lot about that. Is just listening to how they put words together. Ask them how to say it, and just talk to them a lot. Don't be shy. You have to talk to them. If you want to learn how to do it, you have to talk to them as much as you can. You can ask whoever your trainer is if he's good at it. You can ask him a little bit to help you, but the best way to do it is just to listen to them. One phrase you'll be saying a lot is "Come leyo," "Come let's eat." That's one you're going to be saying a lot. But the colloquia, it's going to be a fun thing to learn. It's going to be fun when you're speaking in a way that nobody understands, but you understand what you're saying. So, a typical greeting Like how you're gonna go up to someone when you're talking to someone. It's gonna be the main thing you're. I just said a lot of words there. You can just edit that one out. When you go up to someone, you're gonna say, "Ah, my man, how you feeling?" How you said it is, "How are you feeling?" They say, "Oh." After everything. They say, "Oh," after everything. Like, "Come let you, my man, we're going, oh, where are you going, oh, my man, how you feeling, oh, where are you going, how are you feeling?" Say, "Oh," after everything, you'll be right on. But that's mainly when you're talking to someone, like greeting someone, "My man, how you feeling, oh?" "Ah, you feeling all right? Your day is super, es sweet, oh." Just kind of things like that. That's how you're gonna mainly greet people. You just go up and say, "How your body? How your body? Feeling alright?" "Yeah, alright." I recall more in Ghana. They had more of the kind of etiquette wise do and don'ts, like in a little bit in Liberia, but like the left hand thing. Like if you're left handed, I'm sorry, but if you they don't like you using your left hand as much. For various reasons, but they don't like you if you like gonna shake with your, that you obviously don't shake with your left hand. It's an insult if you're gonna hand something with your left hand, if you're gonna take something with your left hand. That one's really big in Ghana. In Liberia, a little bit, like certain people will be offended by it. But that's one of the things that I loved about Liberia, though, was that they had their culture, but they love just kind of people from the outside, is the best way to put it. They love people that are there that maybe aren't familiar with their culture. Because if there is one thing that you do need to make sure you do, is you always invite someone to eat with you. Even if almost 100% of the time they won't. But like any time that I was eating, because a lot of time you eat outside. When I was eating outside, me and my companion, people are walking by, and they'll say, "What? You didn't call me to eat with you. Why didn't you call me to eat with you?" And it's like, I don't know. But that's one thing they will always say if you're walking by and they're eating, if they're eating outside, because you spend most of your time outside teaching everything. If they're eating, they'll say, "Come leio," "Come, let's eat," "Come leio." So when you're eating, you and someone passes, or someone walks by you, you just say, "Come leio," and they'll say, "Oh, thank you," and then they'll just continue on their way. It's just kind of a show of respect. They have Islam. Islam it depends on where you're at. Like there's some places like what is it called? New Georgia. There's a place like that that's heavily populated with Muslims. There's a lot of them there. And then other places there's one or two, and then some places it'll be all Christian and everything like that. But Muslim there's a lot of them there, and then Christian, it's a good mix. And there's, from what I recall, there wasn't any necessarily rules. Like they have them in some other missions, how you have to get special permission to be able to teach them, because like we said, everyone wants to learn about what religion has to offer, because they believe religion blessed their life so much. If they're Muslim, they want to hear about Christianity, because it's not just because they want to join, but they're interested in learning. And wherever it goes from there. So be careful with that one though. But one thing that I love is that they have, even though their view on family is a little different, like maybe the family is different than it is here. Like we believe like the mother, the father, the children, everything like that to be really close and everything like that as a family. They have an idea of it. It may be different. It's not as close as it is in some places, where the husband is there for the wife, they're equal, and they have to take care of the children equally. Maybe that's not the same. Like there's certain families that get it, and it's great, and teaching people these values is one of the greatest satisfactions about being there. Was teaching recent convert families about how to be stronger as a family is some of the greatest satisfaction. But when it comes to the family, one thing that I like is that they kind of believe everyone in their community to be their family. And everyone looks after another one. They have a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. and this parent will look after this parent even though they don't know who it is. If a child is crying in church, some other random parent will go and just grab the child and just hold it, because they care about each other like one big family. But when it comes to the individual families, like saying the husband and the wife is equal, sometimes it's not quite that way, and it's a lot of the time it's male dominated. When it comes to the family, that the husband has the last say in everything, and the wife doesn't have a lot of say in anything. But then, like I said,